Some 6 or so months after the launch, we're now taking another look at the Pixel 6 to see what has been done right, what's been done wrong in this, our long-term review of the entry-level made by Google flagship phone for 2021 and most of 2022. Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. So after using this phone for a long period of time, the biggest outright compliment I can pay the Pixel 6 is that when using another review device or testing out another Android phone, I'm actually always itching to get my SIM back in this phone. I love to say it's the fusion of the prior Pixel designs that have me clamoring to get back. In reality though, it's the combination of a flat screen and those matte side rails. Because of that, I'm often using the Pixel 6 without a case, but with a screen protector fitted, and it's those two things that make it such a comfortable phone to use on a day-to-day basis. That's important as coming from the Pixel 4a, my main device for the majority of 2020, the Pixel 6 series wholesale is a big change, at least in terms of usability. Small phones are seemingly off Google's product roadmap moving forward, and the Pixel 6 is a beast, all things said. I think in terms of the design, you're also offered bolder, playful and distinctly more googly colours than the larger premium model, and that is one of the reasons why I really like coming back to this phone. Although I do have a case, I just prefer to use the phone without it, as I get to admire that stunning sort of seam foam colour, which is much more muted than I actually originally expected it to be ahead of launch. It almost looks blue in certain lighting conditions, and I do often cast an envious glance at the kinder coral model and then wonder if I made the right colour choice, but I think sticking with sort of seafoam was the right one for me. Despite a divergence though, it feels more in line with previous generations than the Pro does. The Pixel 6 lacks the overly curved edges and sides that I lamented in my long-term review of the Pixel 6 Pro, which you can check out down in the description below, and overall, it's just more approachable because of that. It's heavy though, and that's one of my only major criticisms of the design here. It's only actually 3 grams lighter than the 210 grams Pixel 6 Pro. For me, it's a slab, but it's a comfortable one at that. Because the Pixel 6 Pro itself is such a behemoth, the Pixel 6 at just a few millimeters smaller actually feels positively dinky compared to it. Make no mistake though, this is still a large smartphone that almost needs 2 hands to manage properly. And at 6.4 inches, I think the Full HD Plus panel here is clean, it's sharp, has deep inky blacks that almost help elevate all video content and content in general that I consume on it. Most importantly for me though, as I mentioned, it's flat. That means great viewing angles, easier handling, and better edge detection for your taps, swipes and touches. I can deal with the 90Hz refresh rate as well, as it heightens the smooth Android 12 experience, but I'd be lying if I didn't often wish it was as smooth as a 120Hz Pixel 6 Pro panel. Then I realised that I'm actually not frustrated enough to give up a flat screen and make peace with my flat screen decision. I will say that the Fingerprint Scanner was initially quite a big source of frustration for me, working 7 out of 10 times and even less once I put a screen protector on. I've had no such issues though with the Pro model, but the December 2021 update resolved my scanner problems, and while I will say it's slower than I would like, it's reliable unless my thumb is greasy or wet now. I still registered my thumb multiple times on both hands to ensure the unlock process remains seamless, and it's something I would highly recommend for anybody out there who's still experiencing problems, but if you are, unfortunately, I can't really help there. The vibrations and haptics on this phone, they're also a small step down from the Pixel 6 Pro, but I still think they're superb. They're not quite at the upper echelons of Android, but they're very, very close to the best. And on top of that, the speakers, they're not quite a return to form that I had personally hoped for. I will say they're fairly solid, but don't quite hit the same heights as the Galaxy S22 series. I'd like the speakers to just get a little bit louder overall, but I can't complain too much as they're great for watching and consuming content, especially as you have that earpiece speaker and that downward firing in tandem working really great things. When you're looking at the performance, Android 12 has to be talked about as it's been a fairly divisive upgrade, at least according to the online tech community, but I think it feels tailor-made for the Pixel 6 series, and the changes result in something unlike previous Android releases, and that certainly suits this device and the Pro model itself as 2 of the most important releases in the series today. While I will say that running Android 12 on any Pixel device has been pretty buggy since launch, a number of massive bug fixing patches, particularly aimed at the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, appear to have relieved or at least fixed a lot of those lingering problems. They're now under control, and it's something I can't necessarily give a negative mark at this point in time. I'll also say that Material U has a lot of alterations specifically for these phones and tweaks that make a lot of sense for a smartphone operating system that has seen little real major change since the Pixel 3 and Android 9. A wallpaper-based theming system is something that I think certainly makes this phone feel yours, but the omission of several popular customization features like fonts and icon shapes is something I really will hope return in the future. It took me a little while to get used to Android 12, but it's an excellent experience, and the reinvention of what a Pixel should look like and feel like when in use has been something I've definitely enjoyed in the 6 months or so that I've used the Pixel 6. Doing things like simply switching out your wallpaper is just enough to change the look and feel of your entire system, and I think it helps keep things fresh, and I'm often trying to find the perfect wallpaper just to fit the way I'm feeling at a specific point in time. Seeing all of your widgets, apps, keyboard and other little OS intricacies alter as you've changed this is sublime, and I'm excited to see it develop further with every upcoming Android build. Although I would have liked a little bit more tuning catered towards the red end of the spectrum, as this colour can be a little more muted in my experience than many other hues that you will adhere to your phone. Much has also been made of the capabilities of the Google Tensor processor ahead of launch, and at no time since then have I felt disappointed, frustrated or at least inhibited by what it's been capable of. Even side by side with other flagship phones, utilising the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, Tensor hangs in there really well, and I can't say with any certainty how it will fare in the long term, but I'll likely revisit this view should the Pixel 6 performance levels really start to wane. Everything that I would ordinarily do on a smartphone is catered for, and even when I decide to play some high-end mobile games, I think it's a very pleasant experience. Raw performance has never or has not been a core tenet of Tensor, but other benefits such as the stupendously accurate voice typing and better processing times for images, courtesy of the return of the Pixel Neural Core, definitely feel very much like Google focus points and are right at home here. These are the kind of things that wow non-tech people out there, more so than someone who knows the difference between the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 and the 8 Gen 1 for what it's worth. I don't think with the Pixel phone you necessarily need the best processor, but one that just handles the Pixel's daily needs is going to be more important moving forward. After a solid entry, Google can now start to flex its muscles in the mobile chipset space, after proving its first generation effort is viable for modern high-end smartphones. Tensor itself offers the power that the Pixel 5 series was missing, but it's a leap to a 50 megapixel ISOCELL GN1 sensor that in my opinion has been the biggest and probably the most important upgrade on the Pixel 6 and by extension the Pixel 6 Pro. Those 50 megapixel shots, they're actually pixel binned down to 12 megapixels with no ability to shoot at that full RAW level. Look a little closer or compare directly to older models and I think you'll start to see important improvements in key areas. The Pixel series has never really struggled in many lighting conditions, but the boosts of this bigger sensor make for sharper, more detailed shots out of that camera system. I will note that there is a minor over-sharpening issue that I have noticed maybe 1 in 30 shots. Maybe every so often I'm using my camera and notice it, but this feels like a remnant of the processing algorithm trying to account for the smaller Sony IMX363 sensor that you will find on older Pixel phones. For what it's worth though, I had this issue for a few months and it was far more common, but it's become less and less prevalent recently. I think this is probably going to be due to a Google camera update, but I gotta say I'm actually not entirely sure. And the problem is so minor that if you take multiple photos, you may maybe see 1 in 50, 1 in 30, like I said, it's not a big deal whatsoever. The thing is, I'm just always happy with the images from this dual camera system, and in the 6 months since I've used it, I just love going out and taking pictures. It's important to note though that the ultra wide is quite a step down over the main wide lens. Things here are much softer because it's only 16 megapixels, and in many cases it actually doesn't gather as much light as it is a smaller sensor. But I will say it's still a good ultra wide sensor, all things said, to have at your disposal. I don't want to lament the omission of a telephoto zoom lens here too much though, as I've actually kind of come to terms with that somewhat over the past few months. On the other hand, I would have preferred this setup to actually be similar to that of the Pixel 4 with a 2x telephoto, but I'll likely be in the minority there, I'm sure. Of course, I know that it would have been impossible for Google to put a 4x telephoto in the Pixel 6 and keep that price down under $600, and as much as it's a poor substitute, the digital crop doesn't actually ruin images too drastically as you have a bigger sensor to play around with. If you stay below that 3x zoom range and cropping in and let super res zoom take care of the rest, I think images look pretty much fine. Beyond that range though, and things do start to fall apart quite drastically. This larger sensor also helps light gathering in the popular night sight mode, and low light photography is now even easier than it has ever been before. And I say easier as you don't actually need to stand or hold quite as still to capture photos when using this mode. Google has also added a suite of new modes for the Pixel 6, and I've got to say I'd be lying if I said I've used any of these more than once. Of those new additions though, only the long exposure mode has captured my attention for more than one usage in the 6 months that I've used this phone. I just prefer to take normal photos with no added effects, unless I personally add them in post. That said, some of these features like face unblur will be really good for people with young families out there, and maybe pets and family members that just simply can't sit still. For years we've complained of battery longevity issues on Pixel phones, but that seems to be a thing of the past. There is a sizable 4640 mAh battery tucked inside the Pixel 6, and for me, it powers me through a day with plenty of headroom to spare. I will say that my usage pattern is fairly lightweight most days, and I'm almost always at my desk, which means I often charge once every couple of days during the week, and then head to bed with 30 to 45% battery remaining on average. I'm always connected to a VPN service and predominantly use light mode during the day. Beyond that, I'm mainly browsing and using social media on my Pixel with some light photo taking from time to time. So that's my general use case for what it's worth, so your mileage may vary quite drastically. I will say though, even when moving through the gears and navigating using Google Maps for several hours, or even going out and taking hundreds of photos, I'm never actually worried about having to find my nearest power outlet to top up, and that's something I couldn't ordinarily say about previous Pixel phones. What is a minor gripe though is the charge speeds you can attain with the Pixel 6. You're limited if you don't actually pick up the official Google 30-watt charger, as there is no charger in the box now. What's more annoying than not having a charger in the box is that this actual optional extra isn't even available at a true 30-watt speed. You'll get amounts to what is 23 watts of power via the cable, which is just actually marginally faster than the 18-watt in-the-box charger found on the Pixel 5, and most of the time I just use that. And this poses another problem, as when you're hitting single-digit battery percent figures, and it takes around 2 hours to fully charge the Pixel 6 internal cell, even with a little bit of wear and tear of 6 months of daily usage. Because of that, I tend to just charge little and often to stay above that 50% threshold, as it seems to suit my usage patterns quite nicely, and then I charge to full every now and again using the Pixel stand, and overall I can't lament the battery too much, as it is an all-day performer. The Pixel 6 Pro is the best phone that Google has made for some time, but we're not actually here to discuss that, as it isn't up for debate. When looking at the regular old Pixel 6 though, it feels like the most sensible phone that Google has made since the Pixel 3a and the Pixel 4a. It leverages all of the good areas of previous Pixels and then distills most of the Pixel 6 Pro's best bits down into a marginally more manageable package. At $599, it's a steal. The early bugs appear now to be eradicated with updates, and even when running the recent Android 13 beta, it's a stellar experience each and every day. Many will be looking to the upcoming Pixel 6a and wondering, is that going to be a better buy? Well, given the proposed specifications and likely hardware downgrades, the Pixel 6 still might end up being, or at least offering, a better value proposition for prospective buyers. This particular phone defies its price point at times, and often you forget that it's the base model in the Pixel 6 lineup. For $599, you get an entry into the flagship Pixel series, not unlike the way the A series opened up the Pixel camera to the affordable space, but there are fewer compromises here and now fewer bugs to boot. That is the Pixel 6 after 6 months. Many major problems have been ironed out, and there's a few that still need to be kind of fixed up, but it's still a great buy at under $600 in the US and with very little competition within that market. I want to hear from you though. Do you agree or disagree with these sentiments? Do you love the Pixel 6 or do you just flat out hate it? Let us know down in the comments sections below, but until next time, I hope you enjoyed this long-term look at the regular, baseline, generic run-of-the-mill Pixel 6. This is Damien with 9to5 Google though, and I will speak to you later.